Okay, I'm live. I probably should have announced this so people know when I go live, but I've gone live. So let me turn the phone down before it rings, because it will ring. And until people show up to know that I'm live, it's like the song by Slade or Lakeside. It's all the way live. If I can try to get my phone to start charging. This phone only. I guess it doesn't like this. I don't know. Nope. I have to use my other port. Okay. What I want to do, since no one's on here yet, of course, people will see the video later. Okay. What is start doing live streams on Sundays. So if I start, unless something happens, I want to do live streams. I want to do them maybe more like 6 o'clock. 7, maybe 8 o'clock live streams. Because I think live streaming, it's better for people to be able to ask questions instead of leaving comments. So I'll tell her, says, hello from Belgium. Hey, how's it going? I tell her from Belgium. I've actually been to Belgium. So I've been to Shape in the Netherlands. I got to go there for a couple of days. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. So I want to start doing live streams so that way people can ask questions, because sometimes they'll post a comment and I'll respond to the comment, but a lot of times in the live stream you'll get a chance to ask a question. So and this just talking about studio gear, from what I know, basically from what I know and my experience. So if you got any questions or suggestions, feel free to comment, write them in the chat. So one of the pieces of gear that I wanted to talk about is the Behringer 369 and that Behringer 1273. For those that know, Behringer finally made an actual, to me, an actual clone or replica of a clone that actually I don't think people would have a problem being able to highlight. Like most people, when you have Behringer gear is kind of that gear that either people like it or they don't like. But I don't see a lot of critics they usually criticize Behringer gear. I think when I was watching the video of the Behringer and how they actually put it together and the circuitry and all that, and how they went about constructing these two pieces of gear to be, to me, finally, for Behringer's, because Behringer's gotten really successful with their digital mixer. The X32 is probably their best seller. It's one of those digital mixers. And of course, the concept came from the Midas. When Midas came on board, they made the Midas 32. And of course, Midas is a very highly reputable live gear, live mixing console company. So when Behringer acquired that, I think when they incorporated the Behringer Wing and the Behringer, the X32, it really gave Behringer a reputable reputation for their gear. Because Behringer has always been one of those companies that people would either not like their gear or they don't. Like me, I've had no problems with I like some of their speakers, some of their, this is an excellent, to me, a really, really great MIDI controller, because it's the only one with moving automated faders. It works great in Logic Pro. And of course, there's a few other pieces of gear that Behringer finally, when they got those other companies like TC Electronics, some of the other companies they acquired, it really helped Behringer become a better company. An actual company. It's kind of like Hyundais. The people that drive Hyundai Accents or Hyundai Elantras or Sonatas or Santa Fe, Optimas, whatever, used in the 90s. Like I'm talking 1990, like the Hyundai Excel. Hyundai had the worst reputation for cars then. Now, people have no problem owning Hyundai Sonatas, and they're really good cars. So it's kind of like they got their act together. I feel like the same way with Behringer products. So I think now that the Behringer is actually doing well, especially with so much success with their Behringer digital mixer and the Behringer, their controller called the X Touch and all that, that really allowed them to incorporate to actually make an actual clone that's actually usable and undoubtedly would be really good to use in your studio. So I honestly think that Behringer finally are making products that's going to finally give them a really good reputation along with the other companies. So, okay, Tyler, look, let me start. Okay, posted some comments. It says, Tello says, so I started working on my album and I will make it on my headphones. When I am done with my production process, I have the opportunity to mix, change things in a pro studio, full acoustic treated room. In the meanwhile, I want to work with the best headphone chain I can manage, so I will explain my chain. So chain from Mac Studio to a UAD X8 to my headphone preamp to my headphones. I don't use headphones to mix. I mean, a lot of people do, like what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on him now. He mixes with headphones. Andrew Sheps. Me personally, I prefer to mix through studio monitors, but that's just me. There is no one way to do this. You can record and mix any way you want, so forth. It says for mixing, I will use speakers. Okay. So he says I will use studio monitors. I do that too for mixing. I use headphones only for recording when I'm actually trying to isolate to only hear, especially when I'm doing vocals, wearing headphones, because you don't want any other noises. You don't want any other noises getting into the microphone, so you got to shut everything down to extreme quiet. So I'm wearing headphones for that point, especially the singer or the artist recording into the mic are wearing headphones. Other than that, everything's just through speakers. So, but some people listen in reference to headphones as well. So yeah. Now, well, as far as the album, for Tello, that your album come, good luck with it. I'm going to say, being able to release your music independently, and being able to put it out there without needing a record contract is probably one of the best things that we ever had, because you needed a record contract to get your stuff. And the only way you could be heard was video and radio. This is 30 years ago. But thank God for the internet. I mean, thank God for everything, you know, the way everything's going today. Yes. Okay, Teller says he's asking if it's a she or he. I don't want to make any assumptions because we got to be politically correct. You know, sometimes people say, you know, they could be a woman. It could be, or it could be a guy. So Teller said, I was just wondering how to connect my headphone amp with my UAD X8 interface. Unfortunately, because I don't own a X8, UAD X8, I would not know. That's going to be something you might have to. He's laughing. Say, I'm a he, ha, ha. Yeah, okay. I just, you know, and not trying to be offensive, but you have to, in this day and age, you have to. Some people are actually offended if they don't know, you know, if you're a guy or a girl, or, you know, because you have to be that today. So I apologize. I wasn't trying to be offensive, but I don't own a UAD X8, so I don't know. That's going to be something that you might have to YouTube or Google or download the owner's manual to see how you would have hooked that up. I don't own one, so I can't answer that one. T3 is that Tree? Is that T3 Productions? I apologize if I'm butchering the name. I apologize. T3 3.3. I can't. Forgive me if I'm messing it up. Hello, just tune in. Welcome to watching the live stream. If I mess your name up, I apologize. I'm not trying to do that. We all get creative with our names, and so you know. So, okay. Teller says it's an EDM album with vocalists, acoustic elements, and for the master, I will have an engineer. Okay, gotcha. Well, at least you know. At least you're saying you're going to do a lot of the home production, then you're actually going to go to a studio and you're going to actually use a mixing and engineer and a master and all that. So I think undoubtedly the way you're going to do it, I think it's going to come out great. Making, you know, the choices that you're going to make as far as how you're going to want to do your album and, you know, what you want to do and the tools you want to use and people that you want to use. I think, you know, choosing to use have an engineer and all that, I think that's a wise decision. Someone who got knowledge and experience, because they know exactly how to use the tools. So that's great. A lot of people choose to do it at home, so it just depends. So we got quite a few people tuned in. If you can do me a favor, at least say hello. Let me know that you're here. If you're watching, just let me know you're here. You know, if you don't have any other questions, just, you know, say hello, whatever. That way I know you're here. I see I see quite a few people watching, but I don't know who's here. And he says, I am really production minded so far, mixing, and I am hesitating. Okay. That's you know, when it comes to music recording, mixing, and mastering, the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to say, you know, try it. We all let me tell you, I made some horrible mistakes when I was first learning to do this because I didn't know how to use a compressor. I knew what a compressor was. I knew the knobs, you know, threshold, ratio, attack, release. I didn't know how to really use them when I first started, you know. EQ, didn't really know how to use EQ, didn't know how to, you know, didn't know which mic was a good mic for vocals or whatever, dynamic, condenser, you know, ribbons or whatever. You have to experiment, you know. I would say go for it, you know. Of course, it doesn't come out right, you know. You just, you know, just keep doing it. You get better. Thanks, Chase, for tuning in. Why by Media. Hey, what's going on? Appreciate you tuning in and watching. Thanks for, you know, everyone tuning in and saying hello. I appreciate that. Says Why says, I personally love doing everything in my home. I have also stayed a student. constantly learning new tricks, etc., etc. And I think there was one video that I used to recommend that people would watch. It's called The Art of Mixing with David Gibson. He's got a YouTube. He's really, really popular with it. I think he has one of the best videos, even though it's dated. You know, because a lot of the songs that they're using, I'm going to guess. They got this song called Blinding Me with Science. I'm going to have to guess that they had something to do with that because they use that as a demonstration throughout the entire video. The video is about 3 hours long, but he explains everything from imaging and what courses and flanges and reverbs and compression, and he explains everything and how the tools work and how you get the stereo imaging and all that. It's a great video. It helped me a lot. It helped me a lot with understanding these tools. Now, I also want to get you guys, while you're watching, I want to get your you all opinion. Now, we all know that the home recording studio is pretty much the standard now, simply because they made all the tools. They're building all the tools that we buy today for home studios, your audio interfaces, software, plugins. So that's pretty much the standard, right? Even though I would not rule out, I would definitely not rule out. Let me make sure. If my mic is too loud, let me know if because I see it clipping in the interface. Let me know if the volume is too loud, too low, too hot, or whatever. But I think this is my personal take on the home studio versus a commercial studio today. I think a commercial studio is still very, very important, mostly for the rooms that you need to capture for recording a band or an orchestra. That's pretty much it now. Because you have programs like Reason, FL Studio, and a lot Ableton Live, and there's so many DAWs that they're pretty much in the box studio with everything you need, including reverbs, delays, you just name it. And personally, in my personal opinion, even this big setup I have in this room here, it is not really necessary, even though it's in the house, it's really not necessary to a point. You don't have to go this way anymore. Now, I honestly think it sounds better. It really, and actually depends on what you're doing. But I actually like routing all my sounds coming out of my interface through channels and incorporating a lot of outboard gear over just plugins. In my opinion, that's just my opinion, and it really is, and it's really my opinion based on the music that I do and make. That's not always the case for someone. Like if you're doing straight EDM music, I think Reason, as an example, is a perfect program for like music, like especially if you're doing EDM or FL Studio. They're pattern-based design, they're pattern-based recording type software. Reason has a sequencer in it, but Reason has it has pretty much all the onboard VSTs you need. Plus, you can use, your other VSTs in it, but it's all in the one software. They got Reason 13 that just came out, and I think that software like that is it's one of those software that proves that, like, if they ever watched the studio tour that I did one my update studio I think a couple of months ago, whatever. And I start off in my dining room where I just got a laptop there. I got my Arturia Keylab controller, some monitors, but everything is in a couple of interface, but everything is pretty much right there. And that is a proven point. That's all you need to do. And then you can make ready production, ready to go on the radio, internet, industry standard, just using Reason. So there are a lot of people that still argue with needing the Neve or the SSL console, still needing Pultec EQs and need 273 preamps and all that. And I think that is great if you're still doing rock bands, jazz bands, drum sets, you're still doing, or an orchestra, because you need the channel count, 48 channels, 52 channels, 56 channels, 68 channels, however big your console is. Most people just don't have a console that big in their house. I'm probably one of the few people that have a 48 channel Allen and Heath in their house. I don't think there's very many people that have a console with this many channels in their house. But it's one of those, if you're going to record an orchestra, you like me, I got a lot of preamps, a lot of outboard gear. If you're recording that way, I honestly think it's a proven staple that recordings come out excellent recording that way. They've been doing it for 40 years, 40, 50 years, or recording through a console with preamps, tape machines, and so forth, outboard gear and so forth. And so forth. So I think that it's like, when it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? The only thing that we've adapted in that situation is tape machines. Even though Studio 1979 still are big on tape machines, the editing capability is so limited. Your editor was that razor blade, and then that's what they call destructive editing, because once you cut that tape, you can't uncut the tape. You can do all kinds of stuff with your DAW, and if you mess stuff up, you just get out of DAW and don't save what you did. Open the program back up and then go back to the original way you did before you started editing or whatever. That's what we call recall, right? And that was, believe it or not, that was a lot of the studios that have commercial studios were the biggest complaint, that when they would record an artist, a band or whatever, and the artist would get the final, they would cut the two-track master, and the artist would listen to it and they say, yeah, it sounds great, but the bass is a little low. Can you come back and bring the bass back up? Now they got to go back in console. They got to reset all the knobs. They got to look at all the sheets for that session and reset everything to you got to put everything back to where you was. And you might have already got it ready for another session. And now you got to go back and recall it. And that was excuse my nose itch. That was every studio biggest complaint, is recall. Unlike a digital mixer, like my little Yamaha digital mixer, I can save a scene on like scene 50, go back to scene 50, hit it, and it all the fades, and they go right to that setting. So that's the reason why people like DAWs and digital mixers and things like that, because you can recall and it goes back to the way you had it. You can't do that with a tape machine. You can't even do that with ADATs. So okay. Got some people tuning in. Okay. Why Body Media said it's perfect here. So he's talking about my mic volume. I appreciate that. Seven Sun Music. What hardware do you use on your mix bus? And do you use plugins on it, or which ones do you think work well on the mix bus? I use some for up here on my mix bus. I use, like, for example, I'll use the Lin 76s. I definitely use the Clark Technic and the Lin 2A, mainly for vocals and bass. I'll use some of the Lisa 3630s. Those are my mix bus. But on my master bus, when I print back when I print back for my 2-track master for my final print, for my final master, I actually use the SSL plugin, bus compressor plugin. I was using my Alesis, my 440 CLX 440, which is this top one to the right. You can barely see it. That silver one right there. I was using that, but it was just a little too squashing sound because, you know, it's not like an SSL bus compressor, whatever. That's why I was excited about the Behringer 369, because I actually like the Neve 33609, but Neve 3609 is a $4,500. When I heard the Behringer 369 and how good it sounded, and some people that reviewed it, no one said anything bad about it, but you got Neve engineers that got involved with Behringer to design that. That's why it came out. I'm excited. It's only $499. I'm excited to see what it's going to sound like on my master bus. But right now I've been using plugins. Also, I use Acoustica audio plugins, especially the EQ. So I do use plugins for my final before I print the final on for when I mix. But up here I definitely mix through the console, because it's just the warmth coming through the console and using the outboard gear. I'm not gonna say anything else about that. Okay, I tell us that I use FL Studio and I really believe in it for production purposes, EDM and hip hop. FL Studio, and I remember when it was Fruity Loops. I'm so used to calling it Fruity Loops. I remember when Fruity Loops came out. And Fruity Loops, this is the early 2000s. We're talking on 304. It was decent, but what they've done with FL Studio, FL Studio 21 now, what they've done with that software, I would have never guessed. Because FL Studio, isn't that how people would laugh at Behringer for gear? FL Studio was a laughing stock DAW 20-something years ago. It's like a 1A. It's like, to me, if you're going to do EDM, or hip hop music, FL Studio or Reason or software like now, you can still do that in Studio One and Ableton Live as well. But I think the number for in the box studio DAW software, the two best ones I've seen is FL Studio and Reason. Now, there are a lot of people who will say Mixcraft, like Mixcraft 9. I got Mixcraft 9. I never got a chance to really play with Mixcraft 9. So I really haven't really played with it enough. Now, to me, Pro Tools, Logic Pro. Now, they say you can do a lot of stuff in Logic Pro. I don't play with my Logic Pro enough. But Pro Tools, Harrison Mix Bus, Cubase, Cakewalk, programs like that are more designed for musicians that actually play their tracks. They don't use a lot of samples, or you're going to use a band or so forth like that. To me, production that way, those are great programs. So, why I still got Reasons 13 now as we speak. I still got Reasons 11. I need to update because my Reasons is out of date. Tracklight producer, Peace Mark and chat. I see. Have any of you folks tried Luna? I downloaded Luna. I haven't played with it enough yet. I'm liking it so far. To me, I think Luna was genius to come out. This is the reason why I made a video about is Cakewalk in trouble, because I think, Cakewalk wants to go back to being paid. Now Luna's still free, but we'll see how long that lasts, because most people free, then they got a pro version, right? The object is eventually people are going to want to move to the pro version because you're going to want to use all the tools. It's kind of like any DAW that's free, where you're going to be limited in some of the tools that it can do. And sometimes you need those tools to really use that DAW to its full potential. And the free versions are always limited. So I think that's the psychology behind it. Eventually, people are going to go, they're going to get the free one, then they're going to move to the pro version. It's kind of like, I was like with Harrison Mix Bus, I got, there's the $79 one and there's the $300 version because you get the 32C console in it. I said, well, I might as well just pay the $300 and get the one with the full console, because that you get way more options in mixing on the console through Harrison Mix Bus 32C than you would just Mix Bus. That's no brainer, right? So, okay, yeah, yes, nice. I tried a demo about it last week. There's some people. A wide-body mix. I use a mixer as well. Former owner of Allen and Heath GL3000, right? That's a GL3000. I went over to a old Mackie 24.8. The only issue I have is recalling. You should see me taking pictures of the board. And one of the boards I used to use in the 90s was a Mackie. It was a Mackie 32.8, and it had a 24-channel expansion board. We did in the studio called LPI, right? At the time, I had no engineering skills, so I didn't think the board sounded that good, right? And I had a friend. We all think that Mackie we didn't like it. Problem was, didn't really know how to use EQ properly and so forth, right? This is the 90s. Now, I own a Behringer MX 8000, right? And it's a decent sounding console. But the claim is off from the Mackie. I really want to get a Mackie 32x8 and AB it. And of course, that's a lot of hooking up, switching cables, all that, just the AB. But I really want to do that because I actually know how to use EQ and actually know how to use the auxiliary sends and bus. And what I like about the Mackie 32 and those 24 boards, they also come with meter bridges. So if you want to incorporate a mixing console and you don't want to get an Allen Heath, which this is a great sounding console. This is a really good, even though it's considered technically a live console, this is a good sounding console. I will do a video because I'm gonna have to do a video again because people say I've been accused of making so many talking videos and people want to hear this with everything going. I need to do that. So I got to figure out to do that. It's just hard to do because a lot of these other videos from these other YouTube channels, they actually have people helping them film. They got people helping them edit. It's just me. So that's why it's hard to do this by yourself, So let me see. He says, Tracklight said facts. I used to take pictures of the ghost channels for recall. Now I capture channels using waves. Oh, yeah. Yeah, as far as recall, that's not just, well, the SSL duality was a board designed for recall. That's why a lot of engineered, studios start switching to SSL dualities, the ones that want to invest in the SS duality. The recall on it, it's way more. And then, what you had to do on the SSL, like a 4000 or whatever, you would have a monitor. We're talking 80s design. So anyone with a console like that, you got to remember this is 80s. So what you would do is when you recall channel 1, you would rotate the knob and you're looking at the screen. And then once you got the knob in a position, it would highlight and let you know, okay, that's correct. You had to do that for every EQ, every fader, and So what I used to do for my recalls was I would get everything back in the general area because the mixes are still going to change somewhat. Temperature, all this stuff affects the electronics. Sometimes the channels, believe it or not, this is why they have consoles recap, because the capacitors start to break down. And so if the capacitors on the EQ start to affect or the dynamics, whatever, it's not going to sound the same anyway. Or the same thing with your outboard gear. Now, the one thing that won't change, the only thing that will stay the same is plugins. But it's also, your plugins are only as good as how powerful your PC or Mac can process. This is the thing that's not told about plugins. In other words, if your PC is or Mac is limited in RAM, or let's say you have a 3 or 4 core processor and it's be more beneficial 6 or 8 core processor, whatever, your plugins will see a huge difference because they program the plugins to maximize the resources in your Mac or PC to get the maximum effect of that plugin. Now imagine if it's resource happy, Waves as an example, or acoustic audio, you're not going to get the full benefit of what that plugin sounds like, because you got to remember your PC and Mac still also has to run your video card, your sound card, the operating system, and other programs that run in the background that have to run. Most DAWs and PC and plugins have to be connected to the internet because of licensing. And you got iLok and all that, and they have to see that. So you have to stay on the internet. And it's using internet resources. So, and all these IRQ addresses and buffer speeds and all this, PC and Mac nerd jumbo, this isn't taken into account when we're, loading 10,000 plugins on 10,000 tracks and so forth. Yeah. Let me get to the next. Let me see. So I'm trying to get through something because it's a lot of stuff that came through. So the Luna Pro bundle has a virtual API included. Yeah, that's what I saw on the that. I'm interested because I'm not really big on getting the API bundle because I already have Waves API plugins by Waves, and but some people may want that. It's kind of like I was using Waves SSL channel strip, but then I actually got the SSL channel strip, and I like it better. But because this SSL plugin was actually made by SSL, so I got the SSL. So I don't use the Waves SSL as much. So, and then okay, so Ableton Live. Let's see. He said that's what's up. I'm an Ableton guy. Okay. Oh, he said, and me either. He said, Mark, Logic is illogical to me. And, let's talk about DAWs for a quick second, because, like I said, on my Mac, I got Logic Pro. And on this one, I have Pro Tools first, because I just was never into Pro Tools. I have Cakewalk because I've been using Cakewalk since the 90s. I have Cubase because I've been using Cubase, especially on my old PC, Cubase. So I know about Cubase. I have Harrison Mix Bus. I have version 9. They got version 10 now. Mixcraft 9, Studio One. I got FL Studio on here. I got Ableton Live. I got the light version. I have and a few other DAWs. So the reason why I get these different DAWs, and I'll tell you why I got so many DAWs. Some people only have 1 or 2, maybe 3 DAWs. Why I have so many? My logic behind having so many DAWs is, let's say I bring someone up here to record. And this is why I always thought this was the biggest downside to commercial studios. And I don't know why they didn't, they got $1 million studios, but won't invest in all these different DAWs. And I don't know if because the engineer just only want to master Pro Tools. I'm like, if you're getting paid by a studio, you need to know Studio One, Logic, Cakewalk, Ableton Live, FL Studio, all the DAWs. Because in general, 60% of all those DAWs work the same. It's the other 40% of the features. This DAW does this one, this DAW doesn't. This DAW has the features here. This DAW has the features there. This DAW can use these plugins. These DAWs can use these plugins. They have these VST instruments. This one, so forth. So that's the only learning curve. But the recording process of putting instruments on tracks, arming the tracks, muting the tracks, soloing the tracks, and using the digital mixer in the software, they're pretty much the same. The only thing is some of them, like Cakewalk, has a pro channel that has a whole rack of all these different modules. And so I don't know why you would not invest. But my logic behind that is, if I get someone, I'm using Cakewalk, right? And I do some audio files in Cakewalk, I can export those audio files into like FL Studio. If they did some tracks in FL Studio, I can upload FL Studio. They may be comfortable in FL Studio. The reason being because every DAW will see your audio interface. Like I have, so when I set my interface to see my analog and I can set all the outputs to come to every channel on my console. So I can set my DAW, the outputs, once I load up that DAW, the output of it into my from my analog into every single channel. So if I put a kick here, if I'm, let's say I'm working in FL Studio and I want the output of the kick I'm working on to come out of, one, I raise it. Now it's coming out of that channel. I can hear it through the speakers. I got the snare here, hi-hat here, whatever, toms, whatever, other electronic instruments I got going, whatever. I got bass, keys, vocals, blah, 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 blah. And if let's say I have 40 tracks, well, I can put those tracks into groups and then send a group to an output to come through the console. And what's nice about it, because I have a patch bay, my outputs, I can run my outputs and then send it to outboard gear in case I don't want to use a plugin. I can patch in an outboard gear. I might want to use my EQ there, or I might want to use my compressors, or I might want to use my external reverbs. I can run all that through the console and hear it that way. And every commercial studio, whether you got an Allen Heath, an SSL, a Neve, an API console, can do this. It made no sense to me that I'm going to go down to Nashville or I'm going to New York what's your DAW? Well, we got Pro Tools. Well, I did all my stuff in Cakewalk. And Cakewalk is free. There's no reason why they shouldn't have Cakewalk, because Cakewalk is free. We're just going to import the files in Pro Tools and then we're going to mix it that way. Well, there are tools in Pro Tools there are tools in Cakewalk that Pro Tools doesn't have. So that's the reason why my thoughts process, if you came in here and you were working in Reason, well, I have Reason. So you can load your session up in Reason and we can work out of Reason and incorporate. That's my logic behind it. Some people may not agree with that, but that's my logic behind it. So let me go to some more because everything's coming in. Okay. And then so Widebody says Ableton Studio One for mixing and mastering, MPC software sometime and machine, right? Like I have MPCs. And I think that's another awesome DAW that we don't talk about, the MPC, Akai MPC. Some people do because they use Akai. Like I got a Renaissance. I don't have the newer, but these right here work. I'm very happy with my MPC Renaissance. I love this thing. I was working on my MPC Studio, but I really love because of the Q links and all the functions you can do. And you can do everything on the screen, but I do everything within the MPC software. But this is especially for making beats and being really creative and sampling and splicing, cutting up samples and doing all. Yeah, this is off the chain. But that's just me. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so let me see the next one. That's what happened to me. I had to go get the pro version and see. That's like I said, most of the time you get the free version, but then you realize you wonder why the pro version, it's the psychology behind it. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant and they give you they give you like a sample of the food, and the sample of the food is free. But if you really want to experience the real thing, you need to go get the real food, go get the real dish. But that's what you got to pay. That's the secret behind it. Track, like I said, I love how Mixbus 32C sounds, but it's a CPU. Yeah. That's why I said your PC minimum 16 gigs of RAM, 32 is better, 16 minimum, 8, which I don't understand when you go buy a laptop or PC. Why does you know, when you buy not a PC, where you got a tower, why they think 8 gigs of RAM is sufficient. But I guess they think most people are not into music production. They think you're going to buy that PC or laptop because you're just going to do some Microsoft Word, you know, whatever. You're just going to get on the internet, you know, you're going to do some basic software. Most people don't think that you're into music production. But, you know, I've learned this is why a lot of people get into gaming PCs, because gaming PCs, I mean, they're loaded with RAM and they have high-end video cards and just yada, yada, yada. So, let me see. Oh my God, the SSL ASW 948 for $10K a month. I almost sold everything to get it. Came with patch bays and snakes. Let me tell you about let me say one thing, and I'm not gonna badmouth the ASW. My thoughts on this, because it's like $120,000 or whatever, right? It's perfect for a smaller size analog console for someone that has a smaller space. But like, for example, this Allen Heath 48 channels. This bonus room is a normal size bedroom. Because it's the bonus room. It just, you know, doesn't have a closet in it. But it's a normal size room. This 48 channel Allen Heath fits in here with ease. The only reason why my room looks a lot more cluttered, because I got keyboards here, I got this computer desk here, I got a stereo rack here, I got another, you know, plus I got keyboards, I got amp and all that. So if I cleared a lot of this out, this room would swallow this 48 channel console. I can even fit a larger SSL 4000 in here. The problem with a big console like a SSL 4000 is weight and the power supplies. But at the same time, a lot of those SSLs, knees and all that, knee VR, I seen a used knee VR, probably weigh 800 pound console for $25,000. I only think that the ASW, my only thought process with products like this, just like I made the video about that little 12 channel mixer that SSL came out with, that everyone was paying $3,000 for because it was an SSL. And I'm like, you can spend $3,000 and get you a Midas 32 channel digital mixer for the same price and get 10 times more options. They don't give you anything with that little mixer. The SSL Big 6, SSL Big 6. The ASW, to me, $10,000 a month, I think it should only cost $10,000 max. The same thing with the Neve Genesis. I think that was $90,000, $100,000. And I'm thinking $100,000 on a Neve Genesis. And I know there are people like, well, you know, because you can incorporate DAW. I got a fader port to control the DAW, or I got MIDI control. I don't need my console to control my software. I got fader port. This fader port was $99 to control my tracks, stop and play, and, you know, arm and all that. Or I can do it through, you know, my MIDI controller here, my M-Audio, $349. I'm not spending $100,000 because they incorporate, you know, that's just me. But ASW 9000 or the 948 and all these, the 928 and all that, I honestly think, and the SSL XL desk would have been more the route I would have went if I was going to go with an SSL product. You can get that for $20,000 and you could put in your own 500 series modules if I was going to do that. But that's just me. That's just me. And he said, knock on wood, I'm still reading through the questions. Y'all loaded me with a lot of questions, or comments. So I'm just going through the comments. Knock on wood, I'm still running a Mac Pro 5. Yeah, 5.1. Yeah. And my Mac is an older one. It's still got High Sierra. I know, don't jump, because they have Monterey, Big Sur, all the newer operating systems, but High Sierra still works. So I might be forced to get a Mac, a newer Mac when nothing works on it no more. Like my other Mac, you can't even get on the internet with it anymore. I think it was still Lion or something, Mountain Lion or whatever. You can't, yeah. So that's why I'll never really turn it on no more. But I love the way Mac cheese grater towers are built. I love these. I just hate that Mac felt that they need to change their operating system every year. I'm like, and then the plugin companies that write for Mac have to always constantly upgrade their software. The same with the DAWs to work in the newer operating systems. And I know that sometimes they say with Macs, as long as you have a Mac, like, and you have the latest, like 5.1 up, whatever, 6.1 up, whatever, you can upgrade your operating system for free. But like me, this PC is still Windows 10. Eventually, I'm gonna have to go to Windows 11 because they're not gonna start supporting it after 2025. You're gonna have to be Windows 11. I'm waiting for them to fix all the bugs before I jump on the Windows 11, go get new PCs and run Windows 11 because I got a lot of programs that are Windows 10. That's just me on that. Let me see. Next comment. Either Mark logic is illogical to me, or I'm with you on that. Yeah. It's like I said, every DAW is not for everyone. Some people that are high logic pro lovers, they love it. Just like some people that are on this that love their Pro Tools. And there's a lot of the people that are on the internet that have big channels like Warren Hewitt, quite a few they've been Pro Tools. I don't think Pro Tools has never been a bad program. I just didn't like how they kind of strong arm you in a way that you have to keep paying into them. I bought my Harrison Mix Bus, only thing that you have to do with those type of programs is just pay for the upgrade. One time buy. But they're not forcing you to buy subscriptions and all that to get support. You got to buy a subscription to get support in case you have some problems with your and another thing that I never really was big on Pro Tools was the fact that you have to have iLok. When I can do everything in Studio One and don't need iLok. Now, some people think iLok is a great protection, but iLok can also be a hindrance because once you got iLok will limit what you can do in case, let's say your PC goes down or your Mac crashes or whatever, and it dies. You can't let's say it's break. You can't unboot. You can't boot the PC or Mac back up to get the work to switch it. You got to go through them and have them uninstall the iLok and everything that you got associated with that particular computer. You got to go through all that, which I don't agree with that. I think that if you have your PC crash, you bought the program, the software, you can go to whatever the source is, Harrison Mix Bus, whatever, Cakewalk, whatever. You can go to the cloud or whatever and download it. You get a new PC or Mac, you can download the software to your new PC or Mac. That's how it should be done. Not having iLok lock your stuff. That's just me. Pro Tools is playing catch up with DAWs, in my opinion. They're surviving off of legacy. Yeah, because Pro Tools started in 92. All they did was they kind of improved the GUI, which is graphic user interface, which means the way it looks. But like I said, Pro Tools has been psychologically brainwashed to people that's the industry standard. I'm like, if you really think about it, if you know about computer software programming, it's really a lot of the tools. Like I'll use Cakewalk as an example. There's so many editing capabilities in Cakewalk that you can do Cakewalk that that people have been doing Pro Tools. You can do in Cakewalk. The same thing with Studio One. There's tons of editing capabilities in those programs. Ableton Live has a ton of editing features. Reaper has it. Even all the other like Reason, they got editing capabilities. FL Studio. So I just was never fell for Pro Tools. I'll leave that alone. So let me see what else. Oh yeah, Plugin Alliance has a sale. Has sales. Got all the channel strips for $30, and that's on the Plugin Alliance, Sound Toys. There is Isotope, Waves, and so forth. I have Slate, Acoustica Audio. A lot of these. There's so many UAD. There's so many plugin companies. Nomad Factory. The list just goes on and on and on. One of my favorites is IK Multimedia, T-Rax, all their vintage style plugins. It's like I'm a big IK Multimedia, the T-Rax plugin user. That's some of my number one go-to plugins is the T-Rax. Oh yeah, Trackline said those power supplies are hot in the SSL, especially the 4,000. Yeah, that's the reason why you had to have a serious HVAC system. In a commercial studio, because they had paid clients, because clients at the time in the 80s, the 90s, artists were getting $100, $200, $300, $400, $500, $1 million advance budgets. So a studio session at the time, because most of the time they were hiring studio session musicians, production producers, studio engineers, and so forth. So, I mean, an average cost of an album was about $200,000 to $250,000, because they would have 12-hour lockout sessions, and they would have that for 3 months working on one album. And once they did the album, it would get released, the A&R and all that, with the record label would say, yeah, this is a great album, we'll release it, gets put on the radio, and then they send all their marketing teams to get these stuff to get on the radio. They go make a video to get it on to VH1 or MTV or BET or whatever. And now as the marketing's in effect, people start seeing the artist, and they go buy, and now the artist can go on tour. And they can start making the money to pay back the record label that $250,000 they own. So to say this, they having a console like a Neve or an SSL or an API or an MCI, anything that have a power supply, because all my analog consoles have power supplies. Thank God the power supply for this don't get nowhere near as hot like an SSL. You don't have to have a ridiculous HVAC system. It not only was the power supply, because a lot of that was 220 volt and not the 110. It was 220 volts. Not only was that eating up your electricity bill along with all the gear, because SSLs had to stay on. They reckon you never turn it off. It stays on just like your refrigerator. That's why a house was an idea. That's why you had to have a building built especially for that. The wiring, all that is designed especially for recording, rooms floating with rooms, and so forth. They were built for that. They could run those power supplies. The HVAC was running 24 hours a day, which means in a commercial building, unlike a house where your electricity bill might be $300-$400 a month, their electricity bill is $3,000-$4,000 a month. But they don't matter to a commercial studio, because they're getting $3-4-5 million from 6, 7, 8, 9 artists. That money was not enough to cover the cost of buying gear, the maintenance crew, the engineer, studio manager, session engineers, and everything else, or whatever. It covered all the expenses: lights, water, electricity, the HVAC. So you had to have that. When they came out with the SSL Origin, they knew they had to eliminate having these overly hot power supply units. So they have power supply units similar to like my Allen Heath that you can run off 110 power. That's what the SSL they got. They had to do that. So that's why if you see an SSL Origin, you don't need an HVAC room. So I know that was kind of covering that. He said, "Oh, that's the Big Six. That was overpriced." I made a video on that. it's called about another piece of gear that SSL that we can't afford. And I made a video about that a couple of years ago. I talk especially for that and how you have options. The SSL Big 6, $3,000. I think they dropped the price. Most of the SSL products, when they first come out, they introduce product, they realize it ain't selling. You ever notice a product, including SSL Origin, that when they start off a certain price and you watch it and all of a sudden it's cheaper and it's getting cheaper and cheaper? That's because it's not selling. That's basic economics, supply and demand, right? So Track, my bucket list is to drive to Memphis and have a Creation Audio revamp my Ghost 32. Oh, the Soundcraft Ghost. Yeah, the Soundcraft Ghost. I got a friend that uses it. He swears by that console. I think the biggest thing when they do those kind of consoles, because I really wanted them to, there's a company that was supposed to be able to give me a lot more headroom and all that, but they wanted $8,000 to mod the board. And I just didn't have $8,000 at that time. They wanted to mod the board to give you a lot more headroom, and so forth. They recap the board. They do a whole lot of stuff that makes it actually sound like an SSL Neve. So that might be a great thing to do. Track said, I love the core pads in the new window. I had new window, but I had the older version on this PC. I didn't play with it enough. Oh, he said, Nomad Factory. Drum Tools is my favorite. Yeah, I have Nomad. I have their plugins as well. I was trying to say IKT racks. Yes, sir. Since Pro Tools 5. I love IK Multimedia's. They were ingenious with that plugin suite. Some people may not be, some people like UAD or the Sound Toys or the Isotope, or there is there's other plugin companies. I love IK Multimedia is one of my number one go-tos. Other than I use Acoustica Audio. I haven't really messed with Slate enough. Waves, I got some Waves. But IK Multimedia is, they get the job done for me. And then Daniel, welcome. Daniel, welcome. For watching the channel from Albany, New York. New subscriber. Hope everything is well. Great content. Question: do you do any mentoring? I try to mentor on this channel as much as I can with the video content. Now, what I can do, I have to set it up in a way, but like I said, it's hard to do what I want to do because I need video. I need assistance with a couple of people to help with the video so I can do demos on how to, let's say, for example, someone want to use a compressor properly or an EQ properly. It is hard to try to hold a camera and, sometimes I'm holding the camera and it's moving all around and I'm getting all this weird fat, this fat, and people like, man, your camera movement and all this is making me nauseous and all that because the way I'm holding the camera, because I can't really see what the camera is. I'm trying to, whatever the case. So I'm trying to come up in a way where I can do video editing and still be at the same time, I guess, give lesson videos or mentoring videos at the same time. If that makes sense. I am still trying to figure out how I'm gonna do that. Track like talking about, their overhead was crazy. I'm trying to figure. Let me see what that related to. I'm just reading out what's in the comments. Okay, so far that's all I got so far as far as what people commented. Tracklight, I really do appreciate you, Tracklight Productions, for tuning in. Wired by Media and everyone. So, like I said, with the gear and the plugins, I initially started off the video talking about. I finally did think that Behringer coming out with the 369 and that 1273 as a clone. I think they finally are doing it right, just like with Warm Audio started their company doing, Heritage Audio, Ventec Audio, BAE, and all the other companies that were making replicas. I think finally Behringer caught on that we need to make products like that. And I think with the Behringer 369 and that 1273 preamp, I think that finally is going to give Behringer a reputation to say, okay, we're good enough like the other clone companies. Because Behringer had kind of, it's kind of like I said, with you have record, it's like with the car company. When you got products that are here, and then you got, it's hard for people to believe in you, you know, when you were making, you know, it's kind of like a lot like that, you know, some of the Behringer, the older, you know, like I got a few of the Behringer compressors in there, like the Composer. And believe it or not, some people will call that Composer junk. It's an okay compressor, but it's not going to sound like my Lindell Audio 76. It's just not. You know, but my Lindell Audio 76 has got transformers and input output transformers and Class A op amps and stuff like, I mean, just not. So now Trevor says, I got the Warm 73. I wanted to try out the 1273 from Behringer. I need a stereo pair. I think the 1273 is a stereo pair. I want to hear how it sound like because I have the Altrons. These are the Neve 73 clones by Altron, but this company, I listened to these Altron 73s and I A-beat it to a Neve 73 and they sound identical. Except the Altrons were only $399. I had one. I liked it so much, I bought two more. That's why you can see three there. And I'm going to get one more because I just like, wow, to get a Neve 1073 sound for only $400 when Neve 73s are running $2,500. I mean, that's kind of like a no-brainer because no one's going to hear that. You're not going to hear those in, you know, in a mix. So, Tracker said, I love my Composers. They remind me of my old DBX 166. Like, to me, they're an okay compressor. I have no complaints with the Composers. I have one downstairs and one up here. But I don't think it's really so much the sound quality of the Behringer. I think the problem that people had with Behringer was being cheaply made. Because every now and then you would get a Behringer product and it, you know, you could turn a pod, you know, or a knob, and it would start sounding scratchy, you know, and it would, you know, that I think that was the problem. I don't really think people had a problem so much with the sound. Some people say the Behringer can sound kind of brittle and bright and thin on certain things. But I think that even that wasn't really the issue with people buying Behringer products because they knew they're not buying Neve or API or Pultex or, you know, products that are $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a piece. You know, you're only paying $199 too. So I would never, that would be like ridiculous to think that I'm going to spend $199 and think I'm going to get Neve quality sound for $199. Just the transformers and the circuit board and that Neve cost more than the price of the entire unit. But at the same time, I don't think most Behringer products were usable as far as sound. I think people had a problem with Behringer just being cheap and breaking, and that was the problem with Behringer. So let me see. Oh yeah, it said nice. They got the EQ too. Oh, yep. If we're talking about if you're talking about the preamps. Oh, it said no one would. I agree. No one would tell. Only someone with Dolphy hearing. I had to laugh on that because I've made this before. I said you got to have dog hearing to hear. If you're listening to music, if you're listening to a track, And whether you plug through a plug-in on something or an actual piece of gear, the average listener are not trained to know to hear an actual distinct 1176 as an example. And not in some instances, there are different versions of the UA 1176. You have revision A, B, D, F, and I've always heard engineers that would sit there and say, or there's the blue stripe. You know, there's the 1178, you know, 1178, which is the dual. Then there's the DBX 160. There's the, you know, versus the 166, which is a dual unit. The DBX 160, there's the one that actually have LED lights on it. Then there's the DBX 160 that actually has the VU meter. And, you know, they were always saying, like, for example, most engineers would use 1176s and LA2As on vocals and bass for the most part. They would use DBX 160s for drums. Some of them like to use the the LA3 on guitars. Some would even like to use API 2500s. There are some mix engineers that love to use distressors. They call that was supposed to be the Swiss Army knives of compressors, because of everything that you can do, even get some slight distortion out of the compression. They send all these even and order harmonics. And if you're not familiar with hearing things like harmonics, they have harmonics where you can have a tone, another tone, you know, one tone's would be an even harmonic, the 3 would be an odd harmonic, 4, and they would stack, but they're stacked in a way. It's like, how can I say, it's like the sound goes from sounding thin to sounding a little bit thicker and warmer, and they call these harmonics, right? It's almost like hearing harmony without actually hearing harmony, like 3 people singing in harmony. So the distortion and the even in order and odd harmonics and all that would create this color to the tone, and they would say that's pleasing. But the what, you know, it's kind of like, but the average listener, the people that just listen to music, they're not into gear, they're not watching my channel, they're not, you know, they can know, they don't know, they can care less about plugins or gear or whatever. All they care about is a great song to come on the radio or on a streaming service or internet or whatever. No one's can listen to a song and say, oh, that Justin Timberlake song was done out of the record plant on an SSL console, and they used a blue stripe 1176 on his vocals with a 4-to-1 ratio compression. Oh yeah, I hear the quick release, faster tacking, you know, compressor. Then they chained it with a LA2A at a peak reduction. No, who talks like that? There's not a single person would even know. It's like saying, oh, I go to my barber and he's using a number 3 guard because he's got these type of clippers that the vibration of the blades, you know, react at a 4,400 RPM that gives me a nice. No one goes. You just, all you care is, I want to fade and an edge. That's all you care about, unless you're a barber and you're looking for different qualities of clippers to cut hair with, because everyone knows the better quality clippers, you get better hair results, right? You know, that's kind of a no-brainer. But that's but no one, and believe it or not, even to this day, you could, even if you do know gear, the results of a good engineer, no one would know distinctly if it was something that was recorded on an API console. Believe it or not, I used to think when I was learning this game, you know, you would always hear about the top 3. SSL, 4,000 or 6,000, or the 9,000, whatever. You would hear about API, like the Legacy or whatever. You would, or the API 1608 or whatever. You would hear about the Neve. like an 8048 or 8038 vintage console, it's a split console, you would hear about Neve. Or you would hear about the newer Vs, like the VRs. They have full, flying faders and so forth. Those are what you would hear. So we would automatically assume every studio would have one of those three, right? As far as a console. Not realizing that in the 80s, there were so many different companies that had consoles, including Tascam. Tascam had an M700, looked just like an SSL, as big as an SSL. That was in studios. Not only did Soundcraft, there was Soundcraft, not the Ghost, but the Soundcraft Sapphire. There was what else companies? MCI, which used to be Sony. MCI was one of the big, it was, there are companies that still use MCI consoles. And there was just a list of just, and not just that, but you got Audient, you got Helios, there's Trident, there's Daking, even UAD had a vintage console. And the big three was assumed that that's every console would use that. Here's what I had to learn in the recording process. A lot of times, so many factors were recorded. You could have an artist go to a studio in New York, like they would book a session just to record their vocals because they've already got the instrumental recorded in a studio in Los Angeles. So it would be something like this. The musicians, the session musicians, and that's not even talking about the gear that the musicians have. Like, they're using Fender American Jazz or Fender Precision Bass, 4-string or whatever. They're using a Les Paul guitar. They're using an AC-130 amp or whatever. They're using a Harkey 410 cabinet or whatever, the keyboards used or the piano using a 9-foot Steinway & Sons or a Yamaha C9 Grand or piano, or they're using a whatever the gear. They went to a studio and it's not well-known ones. It could be something like Brass Works Recording Studio. And in that studio, he may have had a Triton 78 console. And he may have had whatever preamps, or he might use the preamps on the console. They would record through the preamps on the console, use mainly the console, record that to a 2-inch tape, cuts that 2-inch tape, send that 2-inch tape, Ampex or whatever, whoever the company made the 2-inch tape, it would go to New York, and they would load it up onto the Studer 800 or whatever tape machine. Now the vocalists can cut their tracks, and they're in that studio happens to be an API Legacy. And they're going to record through the preamps on the API Legacy for vocal, or they're going to use a Neve 273 or 1084, or they're going to use an Apex preamp or whatever. And the microphones that they might use, it could have been a Neumann U87, a Neumann U67, it could have been an AKG 610 or an AKG C414 microphone, whatever. Recording through whatever. And that recorded through their vocal chain. They could have ran it through a 1073 and a Tube Tech compressor. After they record their vocals and the background vocals recorded their vocals, because the engineer might switch the vocals, he might have, like, for example, they use the SM7B on Michael Jackson, but then Bruce Swedien switched to other vocals to do background vocals, unless Michael Jackson was doing his own background vocals. He would switch microphones and do stereo effects and all this different things with different microphones to record backgrounds and other things like that. It would then leave, for example, New York, and it would finally go to like the record plant to be mixed. And this mix engineer would load it up on an SSL, 4000 or whatever, 6000. And they would record they would mix it, right? And everything, they would use all the software, all the, whatever, delays and reverbs and choruses and flanges and, take echo machines and whatever they're going to, for the mix. They would cut a 2-track master. It would go to mastering out of somewhere out of Los Angeles. And this guy's got a whole desk full of mastering, like a Manley Passive and just, this mastering EQ and compressors and limiters and all that to master it. And then you would hear the final product after it came out of the mastering. That's what you would hear. So that was the process. In some instances, it's still done like that today. So let me see. Let me get back to some more questions or some more comments. He said, in my opinion, the song emotion musicianship accounts for more than what brand of EQ is used. This is probably the number one source, and I'm not going to knock Al Schmidt. I use Al Schmidt at Capitol Studios as an example. We're giving Al Schmidt, he's a really great mixing engineer, but a lot of the credit, you have to give credit to those musicians. Those musicians are coming in, they're using Bach Stradivarius trumpets, they're using $3,000 Yamaha or Selmer or what's the number one staple? I forget the saxophone because I'm a saxophone player. I have a Benjamin Adams. It's okay saxophone. They're using such high quality instruments. The drums they're using, DW drums. So that the tone is 80% there as far as the tone. The quality of the recording, also 80% of it is because the musician knows how to play. The guitar player is not some guy or girl that only been playing for 3 months. We're talking a seasoned 15-year, 20-year, 30-year experience guitarist or whatever. So naturally is going to record well because they know, every good musician also knows dynamic control. I'm talking about volume. They're not always playing at maximum. They know how to break it down and bring it up. They know how to, they articulate the instrument. That's 80% of the sound. All Al Schmidt had to do is drop some ribbon mics, some Rohrer 121s or whatever, or some U67 tubes, or some 87 FET microphones at certain angles. He would just adjust the angle to get the right capture of the tone of the instruments. And he would load it up on that Neve VR, bring the faders up, and get a good, nice mix of the instruments, record it, and it's done. Because not only was the quality of the musicianship, the instruments they were using, how good the musicians were, and how the microphones were not only capturing the instruments, but the room they were in. There's a perfect example, if you want to know what I'm talking about. There's a Neve VR console. It's called Air Studios. There's a YouTube video of Air Studios recording this orchestra. You have to listen to some really good speakers. Listen to that recording of that orchestra recording a movie. They were recording a movie soundtrack with the orchestra. That's a perfect example of recordings that come out that way. So I just wanted to caveat on that. So let me see what else we got. There's a bunch of guys in lab coats listening to music. audiophile nerds that's critiquing. No, we can't release that. That wasn't done on a Sony 800 microphone. No, that's not going to work. No. In my opinion, gain staging is often overlooked and it counts for a lot in the sound. Now, see, we're talking about gain staging. We're talking about proper techniques that people should know. about gain staging. There are videos on it, so I'm not going to elaborate on it. If you're not sure about gain staging, there's videos on it on YouTube. Just go watch some gain staging videos to understand what gain staging. But there's a lot of things that deals with that. You know, sitting in a sweet spot, the right SPL, sound pressure levels, room deflection, room nodes, nodes where there are all these weird reflections in the room that you got to eliminate, bass trapping, acoustic paneling, psychoacoustics. There's a lot of things that goes into getting good recordings that a lot of people are not aware of. Some people just buy gear and they set it up and they wonder why my recording just don't sound like I had to learn all this stuff. It took me a long time to learn all this stuff. There's a good book. Here's a few books. Like this is called Missing Secrets by Mike Senior. If you Amazon, or because we can't really go to Barnes and Noble like we used to. Amazon, places like that to get books like this is excellent books to read. All right. If you're into wanting to know about another book, this is an old one. He's got a way more. All you need to know about the music. All you need to know about the music business by Donald Passman. If you really want to know the total ins and out of production, royalties, licensing, legal agreements, copyrights, and everything, to read this book. Reading is power. Then there's other books like Sound Advice on Mastering. This is kind of stuff that, I read. There's another book I have. I don't know where I put it. Oh, here it is. Let me grab it. I bought this book too called Sound Advice on Recording and Mixing Vocals. Excellent. It's so much knowledge when you read. Like I'm a firm believer when you buy a piece of gear, read the manual. The manual tells you more, tells you a lot. So let me see. I only wanted an M700, but they are as rare as Getting an M700, a Tascam M700 is almost like trying to get a Focusrite console. They only made 10 and 3 got destroyed. 1 got chopped up. There's only 6 working Focusrite consoles. But in my opinion, I think the Focusrite console, they did a video on it, the Focusrite console, is probably one of the best looking consoles ever made today. I just love the way that console looked. But the chances of me ever owning a Focusrite console like that, probably slim to none. Unless one of those studios finally decide they're going out and they're going to sell it cheap. I would love to own one of them, but I don't see that ever happening, But then again, God willing, you never know. There's, anything is possible. Then Trackerlight says, I have a small Tascam M1600, that's a really good unit. Really good unit. I've always liked those Tascam, the D8 38s, I believe. I always thought they seemed to be a lot more reliable over the Alesis ADATs. I have the ADAT sitting here. I need to get a case for it. They're sitting right there. You can't see because it's dark. The XTs. But I always thought those D838s were way more extremely reliable. But, So, seems like I got to give my hats out to Tracklight Productions because they have the most comments, I guess. I hope everyone enjoyed the video, the live stream. It is going on an hour and a half, so I'm going to have to shut it down now. It's time for me to go to Taco Bell and get me a burrito. But I really want to thank everyone. Like I said, I have to make a video. I'm going to make my video downstairs using my Behringer because there are people that are still questioning Behringer. So I'm going to make a song using the Behringer and downstairs so you can hear it again. Even though I made 2 videos, one called Behringer and using Cakewalk software, and I let people hear what it sounds like. And I made another video talking about what you want to do for love, featuring cheap Behringer gear. I was being real sarcastic because I know it was professionally made, but I'm going to do a video. People that still don't believe Behringer is some of Behringer stuff is way better than people give it credit for. And then some people actually have legitimate gripes to Behringer gear, you know, as far as quality control. So, oh, Jack says, thank you, bro. Great talk. Was driving, couldn't participate in the chat. I just appreciate that you were listening. I really do appreciate you was listening. I try to what I want to do, because I didn't get a chance to do this last week. I did a live stream a couple of weeks ago. I want to do more live streams so you all can comment and participate. That gives me a chance to interact with you. It gives me a chance to interact with you instead of reading your comments and waiting to get back with you, especially if you have questions. So people that have questions, they can, you know, I can answer questions right then and there on something instead of me waiting. You know, you're probably waiting an hour, 2 hours, or whenever I see it, whenever I get a chance to respond back. So I want to do this video. I'm going to do it tomorrow because I want to show people my recording process, and it's going to be really similar to how it's done in big studios. So I want to show people that again, and then you'll get a chance to hear the final, the outcome. So, like I said, it's 1:31. I've been doing this for over an hour and a half. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. We're going to continue to do this because I think everyone likes live streams the best of this channel. So I want to thank everyone. Thanks Tracklight Productions. I want to thank Danielle, Jack, and Wide Body Media, and Atello, and everyone that was tuning in, that tuned in, and everyone else that didn't write anything, that didn't get a chance to, because sometimes y'all see this late. I might be live streaming. You didn't realize I was live streaming until you already click. I'm already live streaming. You come in a little late. I totally get it. Oh, Nakala Studio. He's an avid studio subscriber watcher. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm about to tune off, but thanks for tuning in. I'm about to shut down. But he said, let's hope Behringer make Behringer clone advanced in EQ. I think they will. Now I think with that 369 and that 1073, I think they're going to have mass success. That they will come up with a Pultec clone and other clones, and they're going to. I think they're going to come out with 1176 and LA2. I think they're going to start making a lot more clones. You watch. I think so. I think Behringer's going to upset the other clone company game. Watch, it's coming. So other than that, I want to thank everyone. I got to get out of here. Thanks for watching. We'll do this again, and we'll see you on the next one. Appreciate everyone. Y'all have a great one.